I'm gonna give everybody a few people a chance to slip in here before we start recording, and we'll go from there. Be a good one this week. I got a whole list of notes right here. We're gonna carry through this together. All right, well, reckon we're gonna get into this thing. Hit the record button. Hopefully it's not too windy for you guys this evening as we're sitting out here on the nice back deck. It's beautiful weather out. Wonderful Easter we had today. Hopefully you guys had a wonderful time with your families. And we had some fantastic food for supper this evening. I smoked a venison ham I've had in the freezer for some time, and then made a hot honey glaze to go on top of it at the end. Oof, melt in your mouth, fantastic, sweet meat. Sorry, I'm not record button, so I just gotta grab fast. But all right. So as always, this week's episode is brought to you by Deep Roots Rifle Company. Elevated excellence rooted in integrity and reliability. Hop over to the site at deeprootsrifleco.com and hit the shop tab and go to town. It's not too late to blame it on the Easter Bunny. You know, shipping is behind these days. You know, maybe his stuff was just a little late. Do your best. So this week, I received a question from an awesome group member of ours and a listener by the name of John. John wanted to know the effects that shotgun barrel and choke combinations can have on a pattern he sees out of a shotgun. So I'm going to do my best to explain that. And primarily, John's question was based around, you know, the length of the shotgun he carries. We'll say your average Remington 870 coming in at 24 to 26 inch barrel versus a turkey shotgun that's usually coming in around 20 inches, 22 inches, a lot shorter. So first, for legalities, let's talk about the shortest length you can have a shotgun barrel, which is 18 inches, which is generally around what you see your pinch shotguns at. Legally, any shorter than that would have to be classified as a short barrel shotgun. So, and that requires, if you're making it at home, a Form 1 file with the ATF. If you're buying one, I think that's going to be a Form 4. But that's just the legalities of it. So it's got to be 18 inches minimum length. A lot of your turkey guns come in around 20 to 22 inches. So barrel length, the primary role of barrel length in a shotgun, it affects the handling, the velocity, and sight radius. But it has minimal direct effect on your pattern size, right? So when I talk about handling, your longer barrels are like 26 to 32 inches. They typically are better for swing and follow through in disciplines like duck hunting or trap or sporting clays, upland bird, stuff like that. And they produce slightly tighter patterns at range, but only because of a more complete powder burn, not because of the length itself. Excuse me. They also produce slightly more consistent velocities because a bit more powder burns before the shot exits. Shorter barrels in the 18 to 24 inch range are more maneuverable, great for home defense or brush hunting. And a lot of times when you're hunting turkeys, you're in a little thicker brush. That's why you see those shorter barrels pop up in that range, right? You're getting slightly wider patterns, mostly due to reduced velocity, less powder burn. And now this is, barrel length doesn't radically change the pattern, but it affects handling and velocity, which can slightly influence shot spread. So take that for what it is. But when you want to talk about what's going to affect your pattern, you're going to talk about the choke. And the primary role of the choke, it is to directly control the constriction at the muzzle, which determines how tightly the shot stays together. A cylinder choke has no restriction. It's your widest pattern. Your improved cylinder is slight constriction, wider pattern, and good for close range. Modified is moderate constriction, a balanced pattern, mid-range choke. A full is tight constriction, tight pattern, longer range. And then extra full or turkey would be very tight, dense pattern, and specialized use. And with a lot of those, they're all gonna be labeled. And your extended chokes, they stick out past the end of the barrel. A lot of times they'll have a knurled end on them for you to be able to take them in and out. You should always use a choke tool. Make sure the gun's unloaded when you're doing it. We don't want any mistakes. Accidents with firearms are bad. So check, double check, and check a third time before you go sticking anything down in the barrel to remove or put other chokes in. A tighter choke keeps the pellets closer together for a longer distance, and looser chokes spread the pellets out faster, which is good for close range targets. So depends on how dense of a pattern you need. You can get away with a less dense pattern shooting clays than you could shooting doves, because you need more lead on target in order to make an ethical kill, versus one well-placed BB out of birdshot is going to bust a clay. So example, at 30 yards, a cylinder might give you a 40-inch spread where a full might give you around 20 inches. So you're seeing like twice the difference from no restriction to full restriction. So you think of it like this, okay? Your choke is your steering wheel, and your barrel length is your ride quality. Your choke's going to affect where your shot is going to land, and your barrel length is going to affect how easy it is to swing the gun. Now, when it comes to turkey hunting, which is what I think John was mostly geared towards, John's question was mostly geared towards, handling is not a big deal. You're not wing shooting turkeys, right? A lot of times you see guys with turkey guns will put magnified optics on them and everything else, so they can make sure they have a more well-placed rifle-like shot, although it's definitely not a rifle by any means. You can definitely tell it's windy because the deck camera's moving. Hopefully it's not transferring through this mic too bad. I've got my little dead cat on here. If you guys knew that, the little fuzzy thing there is called a dead cat. And you can have a short barrel with a tight choke or a long barrel with a wide choke. The choke is what shapes the pattern. Really, the barrel doesn't really matter. So let's break down shotgun choke markings so you can help identify the chokes, especially if you received a set of chokes with a shotgun. Hey John, to see you in here. You receive a set of chokes with a shotgun. They're all going to have little notches in the top, right? And you're wondering, what the heck does that mean? Especially if there's nothing printed on the side, or you bought a used shotgun and it has all the writing's been worn off the choke over use, in out. Your cylinder choke, which is no constriction, is going to have either 5 stars on it or 5 notches around the top of the choke tube. So if you're looking down, when you have the choke in, you can tilt the shotgun up, not looking down the barrel, but you can see the choke and you can see the notches in the front end of the choke, so you know what choke is in the gun. Improved cylinder is going to be 4. Modified is going to be 3. Improved modified will be 2, and then a full is going to be 1. Okay. And an extra full or turkey is going to have no notches or no markings at all. And your constrictions there are, with the improved cylinder, is going to be 0.010, modified 0.020, improved modified 0.030, and then full is going to be 0.035 to 0.040, and your extra full or turkey is going to be 0.045 plus. The fewer notches, the tighter the choke. So some extended choke tubes, like I said, have the name engraved instead, like modified or full, and that's going to be on the outside, the part that's sticking out of the barrel. And like I said, some European or older style chokes may use stars or numbers, but the concept is simpler, right? The lower the number, the lower amount of stars, the tighter the choke is. And two, you see now, especially with like turkey chokes and waterfowl chokes, it's pretty common to have chokes made for a specific shell and shot size. It's actually fairly common, especially in turkey guns, to have it made for Longbeard XR or some sort of what's that new fandangled shot? Tungsten shot, right? And that tungsten, man, you gotta be careful what chokes you shoot that out of, because lead compresses. So just because a choke is safe for lead doesn't necessarily mean it's safe for tungsten. So you need to make sure your choke is tungsten safe. And the same thing goes for waterfowl, because we're shooting non-toxic shot, and a lot of times that means steel. Steel also doesn't compress, so you need to make sure your choke is rated to shoot steel out of, especially if you're shooting a tighter choke. That's why they don't recommend shooting steel in anything more than a modified choke if you're talking generalized chokes that you your shotgun. I've got a set of Carlson chokes that I run in my shotgun. We were duck hunting, and I also have a Carlson's turkey choke, and those things pattern great. But if you want to talk about some of the most fantastic chokes you can get your hands on, you pay money for them. But the Muller chokes, we had him on the show a while back. They're next to indestructible. Two, they're just throwing awesome patterns. What's going on, Jake? All right, so when you're talking about the engraved printing on the choke, you're going to see like CYL means cylinder, IC is improved cylinder, M or MOD is modified, IM is improved modified, and F or full for full. Pretty straightforward. EF or XF for extra full or turkey, and then SK or skeet for, wait for it, skeet. And that's wider than IC, your improved cylinder. And a lot of times when you're looking at, and two, you look at some older shotguns that don't have chokes in them, that didn't come with a choke, you're going to have to look and see what the barrel is manufactured to. And a lot of times it's going to be like, depending on what the gun was designed to be used for, modified or you'll see a lot of modified or improved modified cylinders. Sometimes it'll just be an improved cylinder or cylinder. A lot of your home defense shotguns are coming in cylinder or improved cylinder, and then your guns that were designed for wing shooting are coming in with a modified or improved modified. You want a little bit tighter pattern out of that, right? So, and that's typically just in older shotguns or home defense shotguns that don't come with a choke system. You see that most commonly now in home defense guns, where they don't have a choke, but you can always have those barrels set up for a choke if there's no steel there. So then we'll dive into, we don't care about the metric system, right? We got metric system right now. So we talk about shot sizes and gauges. Let's cover gauges first. So the higher the number, the smaller the shell, right? I think a 410 would be the smallest you can get, and 410 is actually the caliber, it's not a gauge. I want to say a 410 is like a 64 gauge, if I remember correctly. And 64 and a gauge is referred to how many like lead discs, gauge discs, you have to stack to make a pound, or I think it's a pound, something like that. The size of the bore. But 410 is actually the caliber, not the gauge. Then your next step up from that is going to be a 28 gauge, which is not as common, but man, I would love to have one, like a side-by-side for squirrel hunting and doing a little light wing shooting, like snipe and dove. And then you go from 28 to 20 gauge, which is a common gauge you'll find a lot of times in lighter shotguns, in youth guns. 20 gauge has become pretty popular now, as well as the 410 for turkeys with the advent of tungsten shot. I would love, Jake, you say that 28 gauge has become popular. I would love to see that come back. I have seen more shells in stores when I go and look around, seeing more 28 gauge shells, which would be awesome. So I'd love to get my hands on 28 gauge, but I don't know. You go from 28 to 20, and then from 20 to 16, which is probably one of the most iconic hunting gauges out there. I say it is probably one of the best do-all, kill-all, conquer-all shotguns, from deer with buckshot or slugs to ducks with steel, or I'm sure Boss makes bismuth and 16 gauge, and turkeys. Is a really great all-around gun. A little more than a 20, a little less than 12. You know, it handles well. They're lightweight. That's another sweet gun. And I know Jake's got that. You got a Browning Sweet 16, I think, if I'm correct. And I've seen him hunt with that thing. I've seen some 16 gauge Ithacas, John. I just saw one the other day at the local pawn shop here, and it's killing me not to go buy it because it matches the 20 gauge Ithaca I've already got inside. The one thing I love about the old Ithacas too is you can slam fire them. At least the 20 gauge I have, you can slam fire it, meaning you fire around when I pump the action. If I hold the trigger down and I close it again, the shotgun will fire a second time, or a third time, or a fourth time. Which is actually common in the trench guns, which Ithaca also made trench guns in World War I, which is where that kind of got its start. With the slam fire, it gives you a more rapid rate of fire out of a pump action Sweet 16 all day. Unless I'm shooting steel. Do not shoot steel from a pre-80 shotgun. Oh yeah, no, you don't have to do that. But you could probably still get bismuth and run bismuth out of it, Jake, I'm sure. But let's talk about the different size shots. So bird shot. When people say bird shot, they're really just referring to a lot of small BBs in a shell. Your number 9 shot, and the same goes for shot sizes as does for gauge. Well, gauge shot sizes are actually backwards. The higher the number, the smaller the shot. So the lower the number, the bigger the shot. So number 9 would be small at like 0.080 inches in diameter, and that's good for skeet or doves. Number 8, clays, doves, and quail. 7.5, which is what I typically shoot at doves, and everything else. When I'm talking bird shot, I'm shooting 7.5s or 8s, and that's clays, pigeons, squirrel, rabbit, small game, you name it. That number 8 is gonna 7.5 is gonna get it done. Number 6, I've seen guys shoot for turkeys, but that's another one that's great for a little bit tougher small game, and upland birds like pheasants or rabbits. And I wouldn't say rabbits are tough, but rabbits have a thing for getting out into some thick stuff, and you want a little bit heavier load to get through there. You get into the number 5, which would be probably the bottom end for ducks. And then number 4s for turkey or large upland birds. Number 2s for geese and large ducks. And then you go from there to number 2, number 1. You got BB, double BB and triple BB, which is, BB is the size of a 177 BB gun BB, and then double BB is bigger, triple BB, then number one buckshot. So number one, number two, single lot, double lot, triple lot buck. Buckshot is used for larger game like deer and home defense. The sizes are numbered differently than birdshot. Like I said, one, two, and then T-shot, which is kind of a special one, would be great for things like coyotes, because you're going to get a lot more BBs in there. T-shot, I think, rides right between triple BB and buckshot, so it's smaller than number one but bigger than triple BB, and it'll do a number on coyotes if you're running coyote. I used to run T-shot or triple BB whenever I could find them. If I couldn't find T-shot, I can usually find BB or triple BB, and that'll take out coyotes at a pretty good distance. So you got number 4 buck, which would be, like I said, coyotes in defense. Number 1 buck, deer in defense. Single lot buck, deer. Double lot buck, deer defense. Double lot buck is probably your most common. Triple lot buck would be large game, and triple lot buck is coming in at, like, those BBs are just smaller, 3.360. Okay, they're 0.20 smaller than a 9mm bullet. Your 9mm is coming in at 0.380. So when you're looking at like a triple lot buck, 3.5-inch triple lot buck, I think has 16 or 18 BBs in it. So you're talking slinging 16 or 18 9mm size bullets downrange, one shot, and that triple lot buck will put a whooping on your shoulder. So, and then we go from there to slugs. Slugs are a single large projectile instead of having multiple pellets, and they're used for big game hunting, like deer, bear, or they're used for self-defense. They're much more like a rifle bullet in function, and it requires a rifled barrel to shoot sabot slugs or a smooth bore for Foster style slugs. And Foster style slugs have the grooves on the outside of the slug, and you would think when you look at them that this makes it spin down the barrel like a rifle bullet, but it doesn't. It actually works as a stabilizing fin once the slug has left the barrel. And you can actually get pretty good accuracy out of Foster slugs. I'm talking 4 or 5-inch group at 100 yards if you've got a decent, optic on there, or like iron sights. You can get decent accuracy out of Foster slugs. I really wouldn't want to shoot them past 50 yards, but you could keep them a minute of a dead deer at 100. I'm sure at a most shotgun. So comparison type. Your bird shot is a wide pattern with many small pellets. Your range is close to medium, and it's going to be birds, small games, or clay pigeons. Buckshot is going to be tight with fewer large pellets. It's going to have a medium range, and it's going to be for deer, hogs, or home defense. Your slug is going to be a single projectile, and it's going to be a long range. I guess compared to for shotguns, long range is 75 yards. A big game defense and some tactical use. So inside 20 yards for clays or small birds, 7.5 or 8. Hunting pheasants or ducks, go with a 4 to 6. Need home defense, double lot buck is common and effective. Hunting deer in a shotgun only zone, slugs or double lot buck. And you can get that rifled barrel, get pretty decent accuracy out of it shooting sabot slugs. I have killed several deer with 12 gauge. With a 12 gauge rifled barrel with a cantilever scope mount, meaning the scope mount was attached to the top of the barrel. And when I removed the barrel, the scope went with it. I had that for a Remington 870, and I was shooting, the best group I ever got out of that was probably 2.5 to 3 inches, shooting 2.5 inch or 2 3/4 inch federal all copper slugs, and they had this wicked hollow point in the top of them. They put a whooping on some deer, and that was at 100 yards. I was getting that pattern. So I shot a doe at like 40 yards with one, and when she wheeled around, I could see a chunk of lung the size of a softball of my fist or bigger hanging out the other side of her. I was like, yeah, she did. She can go about 30 yards, and that was toast. And on the same hand, I've shot like Remington Express Magnum 3-inch 12 gauge Savage slugs, and they didn't expand worth a crap on one deer and expanded great on the other. But they put a whooping on my shoulder and made it really hard to shoot that shotgun or to get it sighted in. That was a rough day at the range. I enjoy hunting with a shotgun. I think it's a lot of fun. A lot of things you hunt with a shotgun. Hunting deer with a shotgun is fun. Talking semi-automatic over pump action. For home defense, I'd rather have a pump action. I'm just more in charge of what's going on. I guess you could still have it strip a round off and like not pull it from the chamber. And there's plenty of semi-automatics that are plenty reliable. The Benellis, Berettas. So another thing too, depending on the shotgun you own, and this kind of almost specifically applies to Berettas. Berettas are not designed for the American shooting style. So if you were shooting a Benelli forever, and then you decide you want to switch to the oldest, most reputable gun manufacturer in the world, shotgun manufacturer in the world, and go to a Beretta, you're gonna throw that gun up. You're like, this thing shoots low, way low. Well, it's not. The gun doesn't actually shoot low. It's just the way that you're mounting a shotgun. You're used to a different shooting style, so you have to reform your shooting style to a more European style shooting style, and you'll start to see that pattern pull back to where you're aiming. You always want to go out and pattern your shotgun, especially when it comes to turkey season, but even for ducks. You know that you don't want to take shots over, we'll say 30 yards. So you're going to go out, you're going to take your waterfowl chokes, set up a target at 40 yards, 30 yards, whatever it is, take a shot, see what your pattern looks like. Draw yourself a nice pretty little duck on there and see how it hits when you're shooting. Then bring that sucker back into 10 yards and see what your pattern looks like. Because I can speak from experience shooting those. I've got that Carlson's Longbeard choke, and I'm shooting the Federal, can't remember what they're called, 3.5 inch number 4s, copper plated lead. And those BBs at 10 yards, I'm almost best to let a turkey go out to 20 or 25 because I'm shooting such a tight pattern. I've got a better chance, a higher chance of missing the bird at that close versus if I was to just let it get a little further, let my pattern spread out a little further. I mean, I'm still pulling a 18-inch circle at 50 yards with that choke and shell combination. And you can even get into, now there's companies out there making custom shells like Sadie's. Sadie's is making hand-loaded shot shells and tungsten and wherever you need them for. You can get a hold of Aaron Satterfield, and tell him, what you're doing. The Sadie's Fatty is his bread and butter, and that's a turkey shell. But he can also whip you up some shells for ducks, for geese, for Sandy Hill cranes, for deer hunting, and he's gonna make this custom shot shell that's gonna fit your needs better, versus buying run-of-the-mill store-bought crap. Your quality control is gonna be better, so you're likely to see better patterns out of his stuff because it's hand-loaded one at a time versus running through an assembly line machine. So, and consistency, whenever you're talking shooting anything, be it a bow, a rifle, a shotgun, consistency is accuracy. The same repeated process over and over again. If you do every single step exactly the same way, every single time, you'll get similar results. So, and that's why you see more accuracy out of hand-loaded rifle rounds, right? Because you're making sure there is exactly 10.5 grains of powder in each one of these rounds, not 10.6 in this one, 10.5 in that one, 10.7 in this one, 10.3, 10.8. It's all exactly 10.6 grains of powder in each one of these. And you're weighing these bullets out individually to make sure they're all exactly 135 grains. And you're going to group those because one might be 134 and a half, and then you got 135.2, and then 135 even. They're not going to be perfect. But you want to talk about swaging bullets, and that's the art of adding lead to the copper casing to make bullet weight. And you're getting crazy at that point because you're talking just shaving not inches but millimeters off of a perfected group by changing bullet grain weights by half a grain up, down, left, right, center, whatever. And that's for the guys who are just shooting like bench rest competitions. That's really cool to see that, right? Because that is all, there's no, bench rest is not shooter's ability competition. Those guns weigh 50, 60, 70 pounds. Yeah, I know, Jay. I need to head up there to Bama or Georgia. I think they're open until like the 15th of May. But we'll see. I need to get my chains down here in Florida. But those guns, like I said, are like 50, 60, 70 pounds. And you're talking about the ability of said person to build an accurate rifle and then to build an exceptional load. And that's what's going to get them the accuracy they want that wins that competition. And those competitions are won by millimeters, not inches. So, but you can go deep into the weeds with all this stuff. So what it boils down to is you buy that specific style of shotgun, be it a turkey gun. It's going to have a shorter barrel, so because it's meant to be in the woods versus wing shooting. I turkey hunt with a regular old same shotgun I duck hunt with. I don't have a special turkey shotgun. I don't turkey hunt enough, and quite honestly, I suck at turkey hunting. But maybe if I killed a turkey, I'd go buy a turkey shotgun. I don't know. But so Jake says the same can be said about shot conformity. If the shot is oblong or packed too tight, you'll have very odd patterns. And you're right. And you see that with cheaper loads. And you see a lot of guys now taking and cutting shells open and dumping shot out and looking at that. And a lot of times too, when you see that, they're like, oh, why does my shot shell have flaxseed in it? Well, it's to cushion the shot from the other shot so that it doesn't get ruined. That's all there is to it. We don't want to have, if you just packed lead in there and packed it in tight, it's going to become deformed. So that flaxseed provides a cushion. So it's there for a reason. The same with bismuth. Bismuth is a tin alloy derivative. Also, actually, ironically enough, even though it's considered non-toxic, it's actually slightly radioactive. So is lead. It doesn't give you lead poisoning, which makes it okay somehow. But yeah, I don't know how much more I can cover about shotgun. You can have specific barrel work done. You can have forcing cone work done, and the forcing cone is what, when the wad leaves the shell, forces it down into the barrel size that you got there, and then you have another forcing cone in front of your choke area. Jake, this was here that I just finished off was 4 Roses with limestone mixing water. If you like bourbon or whiskey and you haven't tried cutting it with a little bit of that limestone mixing water, you should. I picked up a bottle of that on Amazon for like two 1 liter bottles for like $13, but you use so little of it every time it lasts forever. But that limestone mixing water really brings out the flavors of the whiskey, and you cut it down to about a 30 proof, which makes it really drinkable. It's just fantastic. I've taken, I even took the what's that stuff? Early Times, I think it is, that Matt Oglesby left here in the studio when he come to the podcast with us, and I mixed it with that mixing water, and it makes it actually a pretty drinkable whiskey. And that comes in a plastic bottle. But no, this is Four Roses, which is actually pretty cheap. Man, you get it like $35 for a bottle. It's actually a really good bourbon. And this is Lagunitas IPA. And this here is Cascadia Downwind. They got me with the marketing. But it's actually very good. It's a Virginia and Burley blend, plug tobacco, and it's fantastic. So, but I think I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here. At least the recording anyway. I'll hang out with you guys for a minute and then head off to bed. If you're listening to this on Wednesday from the recording and you're like, man, what are they talking about? Maybe you should tune in on Sunday nights live on YouTube. But until next week. All right. I'm having a tough time keeping this pipe lit and talking to you guys. Had somebody tell me they could see my fire pit burning in the background. That's all I'm doing. This back here, it's a tiki torch. Keeps mosquitoes off. The fire pit would be over here somewhere. The fire pit or the smudge pot. That's what I thought they saw was my smudge pot going. That's back over this shoulder somewhere. I don't have any fuel in it right now, so it is not going. I'm not at the price of diesel fuel. We ain't lighting that thing up anytime soon. Thoughts on 10 over 9 tungsten. Jay, I don't know squat about that tungsten. I know those, like, the craziest thing I've seen with tungsten is like you're talking about the 10 over 9 or whatever else. They have decreased shot size so significantly using tungsten shot than lead or steel, because tungsten is so much heavier and penetrates so much better than either of those two, which is awesome, right? Because now you can take that size 10 or 9 and you're killing turkeys at 30 and 40 yards with 8, 9, 10 shot, and you're fitting a whole piss ton more BBs in that shell than you were shooting number 4s in lead, or 5s in lead, or 6 in lead. But you're shooting like pound for pound a heavier, much heavier load. I can only imagine though, shooting like a 3-inch number 10 tungsten, it's gonna be what, an ounce and a half? That's gotta hurt. That has got to hurt trying to shoot that. Tell you what I think though, I think that tungsten shot is stinking expensive. I was supposed to take the boy out like a weekend ago, didn't get to go turkey hunting, and I went to go look at some 410 shells. Holy cow. $55 for 5 410 tungsten shells? Nah, we're gonna get a 20 gauge this summer. We're gonna just shoot 20 gauge next year. He shot that 20 gauge just fine for the youth duck hunt. I didn't have it when it came around time for the turkey hunt, so I was gonna have him shoot his 410. But now, for 2 boxes of shells, for 3 boxes of 410 tungsten, I can buy a 20 gauge. So I think I'll go buy a 20 gauge. What do you think about that tungsten, Jay? I mean, you're a much bigger turkey hunter than I am over, say, lead or steel. Have you, efficacy-wise, are you, as a guide, are you seeing more people using tungsten and putting birds down at the same distances? I've noticed too with the popularity of tungsten increasing, people have stepped down in gauges quite a bit. Shooting a 12 gauge, 3.5 inch 12 gauge is not all that common anymore. Guys are shooting 20s and 410s. He said it hurt. I don't doubt that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to head on out of here and take my behind to bed. I got work tomorrow, another full week. Crap. Yeah, that's it. We'll catch this live on our regular feed on Wednesday. But you saw it live here tonight. You go watch it on YouTube between then and now. We'd love if you guys are subscribed to the YouTube channel. Seen a ton of 20s this season, so yeah, that's what I figured. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, write a review on Apple Podcasts. 5 stars would be fantastic. That helps us grow the community, because Apple will start pushing it to listener bases, which is what we do. So, but wouldn't be here without you guys. I thank you all for joining me. And if you got any questions, you can reach out to us on our social media. Leave them in the comments of these YouTube videos. I check them all the time. Or send us an email to underpressureoutdoors@gmail.com. And you'll get a hold of me. Or you can just hit the contact us button on our website, uponation.co. Find it there. We'll answer your questions just like we did John's. Until then, we'll catch you guys next week.